Our lab focuses on pollination ecology, including plant-pollinator interactions and communities of wild bees and different factors that affect the diversity and abundance of wild bee communities. So we do this in a variety of ecosystems. Some of the questions that we ask are in cropping systems, and there we look at what bees or insects more broadly are doing crop pollination, how we can enhance crop pollination, either through the bees and the pollinators or through enhancing plant traits that affect pollinators. We also look at pollinator foraging behaviors and how that affects crop pollination, and how the management of farms can affect pollination to increase or decrease pollination rates. But we, in addition to working in cropping systems, we also do work outside of that in native or natural habitats. So right now we're working on a project with a fire ecologist to look at how the timing of fire affects the phenology of plants and pollinators and affects the diversity of plants and pollinators. And we're additionally working with collaborators to look at how invasive plant species can change the plant community with potentially negative or positive impacts on pollinators. So this includes plants like Brazilian pepper tree, ones that provide flowers and may benefit pollinators in that regard, but may also displace native plants that are important for pollinators. So that's a general overview of some of the questions and projects that our lab works on. I was definitely never the kid that was obsessed with insects. I always really liked being outside and I liked science, but I was never really specifically interested in insects as a kid. So that developed certainly later on. And I think my entry into this world was probably in college, when I did a study abroad trip to Thailand. I was there for 6 months, and we took a lot of ecology courses while there. And then after that, I did independent research in fruit orchards, looking at different ways to control moth pests, including organic, non-chemical ways of controlling moth pests in fruit orchards. So that experience really got me interested in insects and the role that they play in agriculture. So I went on to do a master's in entomology and then my PhD also in entomology. And it wasn't until my PhD that I started focusing more on pollinators and the role that they have in agriculture, as well as outside of agriculture and other ecosystems. And for my PhD, I looked at pollinators within fruit orchards, including apples and cherries, and I looked at factors that affect the composition and diversity of wild bee communities in these agricultural landscapes. And then I went on to do a postdoc working in sunflowers, and there I was focusing a little bit more on floral traits and how they mediate plant-pollinator interactions, and whether we can manipulate floral traits to increase pollination and increase visitation by pollinators, as well as potentially increase the resources that those plants provide for pollinators. And after that, I moved here to Florida, and I'm going to continue working on aspects of crop pollination ecology, but working on pollinators and other ecosystems as well. One thing that I think is really important to emphasize is the diversity of bees in particular. Bees are not the only pollinators, but that's really what we focus on as a lab primarily. So when most people think of bees, they think of the honeybee, and the honeybee is actually just a single species, and that species is not native to North America. So the honeybee is a single non-native species. And in contrast, in Florida alone, there's 325 approximately species of native bees. So you're really comparing one non-native bee to approximately 325 species of native bees. And because there's such a diverse group of bees, they come in different shapes, colors, sizes, and their biology is all very different. Some of them nest below ground, some of them nest above ground. The plants that they prefer vary. Most of them are solitary, meaning they don't have large colonies. There's no division of labor or reproduction. And so there's really a great diversity there. And I think that getting the general public to understand and appreciate that diversity is really the first step.